Nobody knows what the 49ers are going to do. Some believe they could change their minds multiple times between now and Thursday. Some believe they have changed their minds, and some believe they are relishing in this mystery that has been concocted in the weeks since they moved up to number 3, when we all thought they had one guy, and now I don't know how many guys. 5 guys.
Yeah, well, that's what
maybe
he repeatedly
more. I don't know.
says,
I
right.
doubt it's more than 5, but it's amazing to me.
It is amazing. I mean, first, I think he gave us some context clues during the press conference yesterday that tell you, at least where his brain was at or thoughts or anything like that. I mean, listen, he gave us some honest answers, but I think there's some other things you could read into too. I do think there was the point a little bit where, to your point, Mike, about talking about the one guy, he makes a pretty broad statement, hey, we were sitting there at 12. We weren't sure if the guy we wanted was going to be there. So that was a little like, okay, my antennas went up when I heard that. Oh, okay, yep, there was one guy, okay. And then I think he's pretty honest after that. They got to his spot. They did like all the quarterbacks, and they dug in a little bit more to do a little bit more homework on all of them.
He definitely was honest when he said we all could be dead by Sunday, because technically he is right. For more of what was said yesterday, both by Kyle Shanahan and by 49ers GM John Lynch, let's have a listen.
Everyone has, in your contract, you do this. The draft is mine. But I told Kyle from the beginning that he and I are doing this together. And when it comes to quarterbacks, I'd be foolish, I believe. We have a head coach who's also our offensive play caller. I will always defer to him. And, what's cool about that is that Kyle, I think, respects my opinion enough. He always wants it. And ultimately, we arrive at decisions. We will, and come Thursday, we'll have a pick that hopefully makes everyone proud, but that will be judged in years to come.
We knew that there was 3 at the time exactly. That's why we thought 3 was a good spot to go to. After going through this whole process, I feel good about 5 guys at 3. We had a guy probably at first back then, but we knew that wasn't set in stone. Yeah, we probably started with one in mind, but that one's gotten better since, and so have all the other candidates. Do we know exactly who we want? Maybe, probably, but maybe not. I don't feel like we need to say that, and that's not just for our case, but lots of stuff happens between now and the draft, and you don't want the whole league knowing exactly what you're set on 4 days before the draft.
Yeah, I mean, one or more of the candidates at number 3 could be dead by the draft. Taking his answer from earlier to its logical conclusion. There was a lot there, though, and one comment that really stood out to me from John Lynch is when he said this will be judged in the years to come. Because to the extent that there is a difference of opinion between plug-and-play Mac Jones, who may have a ceiling that isn't as high as
a Trey Lance,
sit and develop and wait for Trey Lance, or maybe even a Justin Fields. Hey, I got a former GM insisting that it's Fields. Insisting that it's Fields, which is stunning to me.
Well, is this the same GM that was telling you you had another, what was your other one?
That told me you were a good quarterback? Yeah, it's the same one.
Okay, same one. Wasn't there a crazy one you brought up on the show last week that it was insisting something and we kind of got on them? But either way, okay. All right, so they insist it's Justin Fields.
I'll tell you during the break
who
this former GM is.
Okay.
But,
all right.
but look, it could be when they say 5 guys. Who are the 5? The top 5 quarterbacks. It's Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. And we know it's Lawrence and Wilson off the board. See, when they made the move, the obvious reaction, just like when the Jets made the move to 3 6 weeks before the draft in 2018, hey, they're comfortable being third in line,
right?
Assuming it's quarterback. And for the Jets, it was just one quarterback and then a running back, so they got the second quarterback on their board. So, hey, the 49ers get the third quarterback on their board, whoever it may be. There's no... I don't like creating the sense that they have now turned it into a shell game for themselves as to who the guy's going to be. You go from having conviction that it's one to putting yourself in a spot where you've taken a deep dive, a close look, attended the pro day workouts of 3, and because at some point you got to pick one.
Yeah.
And more importantly, Chris, when you pick one, you got to watch what the other 2 do with other teams. It's not like they disappear.
Sure.
I was thinking of this before the show. This is like going into an expensive automobile dealership with the idea that you're buying the Ferrari, okay? Going in, I got the money.
Yeah.
I took out the huge loan.
Right.
Mortgage of the future. I'm getting a Ferrari. You walk in, you got a Ferrari, you got a Porsche, you got an Aston Martin in there.
Sure.
And all of a sudden you realize,
But these drive good too.
I kind of like these other two cars. Here's the difference.
Yeah.
Whichever one you take, your neighbors are going to have the other two.
Yeah, sure.
They're buying the other
Right.
two. You got to see the other two. You got to drive down the street next to them in that other one. That other one may end up being a hell of a lot nicer than the one you bought.
Yeah, listen, I mean, that was a good analogy, certainly, and you're right. I think that's what he talked about, like, what we saw early on with the clip with the social media, and am I going to let the pressure get to me and all that type of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of noise out there, and of course, yeah, Shanahan's name and whatever quarterback he does draft, they're going to be tied to, Fields or Lance throughout their careers. They're going to be compared constantly. There's no doubt about it, especially as controversial as this became, as far as, oh, you can't take Mac Jones at 3. How could he be better than Justin Fields and, man, Trey Lance and all the potential he has? But I still think, like, even to your point, Mike, like, I still think Shanahan went into it going, I like Ferrari, and got to the store and went, I like Ferrari, but, ooh, this is a great Porsche and Aston Martin. Let me take it out for a test drive and see and just make sure, because I'm spending all this money to get the Ferrari anyways. Maybe I'll like these more. And then, okay, you take a test drive, and now you're back down to, okay, this is the car I want. I still think, just by what we heard yesterday, right, that, the original guy that was traded up for is still the guy. At least that's what I came away from that press conference thinking. I really did. Even with the little comment there at the end where he was like, he talks about, what exactly did he say? He just said, well, even the guy we were originally on, he got better too, right? So that gave me a little context clue that, like, okay, that guy checked the boxes. That's the guy going forward. So we'll see who it is. I mean, again, I think it is Mac Jones. There's no doubt. I haven't waffled that on like a bit. But I understand the intrigue of the other guys. And, the more you hear, Mike, just like we've heard here the last few days, I know they didn't make a cancellation of any of them, but, man, the league seems to think it's Trey Lance or Mac Jones. That has gotten out of that building somehow, some way. And I have a feeling it's come down to, those two as well, just by the people you listen to in the media.
Let me give you a more appropriate example than shopping for high-end cars. This would be like Washington, 2012, making the big move up to number 2, where they're getting Andrew Luck or RG3. And at the time, we assumed the Colts were leaning hard Andrew Luck. But RG3 was in the discussion. I remember Tony Dungy saying he'd take RG3 over Andrew Luck, former Colts coach. If you're the Colts, you got to at least listen. RG3 declined a private workout with the Colts, which kind of slammed the door on going to Indianapolis. But this would be the equivalent of Washington making that big move when the Shanahans were there, even though it may not have been their decision to make the big move. And then when they get there, well, we like 4 guys. And all of a sudden it's RG3 or Ryan Tannehill or Brandon Weeden, all 3 of whom went the first 22 picks that year.
Right.
And look, it does create a lot more interest. And the 49ers have essentially hijacked the draft because we know what the Jaguars are going to do. We know what the Jets are going to do. But, man, you really are putting yourself in a position where this could blow up in your face because history tells us a certain percentage of these quarterbacks taken in round 1, along with the other players, are going to stink. What if they pick the one who ends up stinking? Now, Kyle Shanahan may have something to do with whether or not he stinks, but this is a high wire act that they have voluntarily engaged in.
Right.
And I'm not sure they've really thought through what the potential ramifications are, because the potential ramifications are they buy the lemon and the other 2 cars run great for 10 years.
No, and that's the scary thing, and I think that's where, coaches get concerned about now what you're talking about, like the public perception a little bit. And a little bit of just the the sound and everything around all of that type of stuff. Because, where what you're talking about, of course, the coach, the quarterback, they're going to pay attention to the other two guys, how their careers go, everything like that. The fans are going to be all over it. And whoever they draft is going to be held to that standard throughout their career. I mean, it's almost going to be a little bit of a no-win situation until whoever that quarterback is for the 49ers just, smacks everybody besides the face 30 times and is like, look, we're good, I'm good, and there's nothing you could do about it, and finally, shut up everybody. It's going to take probably some playoff appearances and some unbelievable statistics to go along with it to silence the haters on this conversation. There's going to be that part of it, but that really only comes down to the Mac Jones part of it. That's the side I find interesting, because it doesn't seem like people are all up in arms or crazy if Trey Lance or Justin Fields get drafted. It's only the Mac Jones thing. And that's where
where they're leaning.
It's where it's leaning. And that's where the microscope is, and everybody's on it even more. So this is a career-defining moment for the Shanahan era with the 49ers. I don't think there's any doubt about that. This is a huge, huge, night we got coming up for them here in a few nights.
They've made it even bigger by playing this game of which car will I buy. Instead of just making the move, not saying anything, not embracing the mystery. They've embraced it. Like I was told last night, they are relishing this, and that's fine until you pull the pick. Once you pull the pick, you're going to say, maybe we should have been more decisive. Maybe we should have been more clear, because by creating the appearance of indecision, you're opening the door for the I told you so doubters on the back end. You've mentioned a couple of times what Shanahan had to say yesterday about being influenced by social media, and obviously he shouldn't be. No one should be. Let's hear from Shanahan talking about that specific angle.
I've seen the look of people's face when they do read social media. I know how I've felt when I've done it after a bad loss or something, or after a good win. Whatever it is completely inflated past reality. And I hope that any human nature, if you get involved in that, I don't care who you are, whether you're a football coach, a GM, a high school kid, anybody, if you get involved in that, it will affect how you are, how you think, and what you do. And I hope people are, and that will affect me if I got really involved in that. What I can promise people, that you have two people who make sure we don't get involved in that, because that is so irresponsible to let something like that affect your decision. We do this for a living, and I think people should be proud of us that we won't let that affect our decision. And then it's up to us to live with the consequences.
If I understand what he said, let me boil this down. When I look at social media, it has an impact on me, but I'm not going to let social media have an impact on me, even though I look at social media and it has an impact on me. The dog is chasing his tail in that response, Chris.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's aware of how the world works. He is, but he is trying to block that aspect out, and I think what he's trying to say there too, or a little bit to what you said, Mike, hey, it does. If you're paying attention at a very topical level, it seems like there could be indecision, But I think what Shanahan and Lynch are trying to tell you yesterday a little bit, it's not indecision. It's more due diligence, and trust us that we know what we're doing, and, we're running an organization, and they've been running at a pretty high level here the last few years. I think that's what he's trying to say more than anything. So it's not indecision. It's just it'd be careless for me to go up to number 3 and then not really dig in to do the homework on all these other guys just to make sure. Because like you said, his life, his career going forward is going to be compared to these other two quarterbacks, which one he doesn't pick. So he wants to make sure he's, crossed every T, dotted every I, picked up every rock in the world to make sure that, things are the way he expected them to be when he traded up to number 3. I think that's what he's trying to say. So we'll see where it goes from here. But I got the sense yesterday, Mike, at least that, again, now it's not stone cold, but they know who they're picking. I mean, I do think that's gone by. The reports we heard this weekend that the 49ers have come to, a conclusion and know all that. I did get that sense yesterday, at least. Didn't you?
Well, I'd like to think they have a decision
Yeah.
made by now.
Right.
I'd like to think they had the decision made when they made the pick. See, Chris, here's the risk that Kyle Shanahan is running, and I'm on record. He's the young version of Bill Belichick potentially. He could win a bunch of Super Bowls potentially. He is putting a lot of eggs in this one basket, and there's a balance there that you have to strike between due diligence and not being wishy-washy, not creating the impression that you could go through any of three doors. Because if the guy that you pick does end up being the lemon among the Ferrari, the Porsche, and the Aston Martin, if he ends up being the lemon, it's so much better if you can sell, it was never an issue. This was always my car. I didn't test drive the other two. This was always my car. This is why I got that loan. This is why I took a new 30-year second mortgage on my house. This is the car I've always wanted. This is the car I thought was perfect. And you know what? Sometimes it doesn't work out. When you allow yourself to flirt as openly as they have with these other two guys and then embrace the mystery of what you're going to do. We don't need to let anyone know what we're going to do. Well, it doesn't matter if they do. It's not like they're going to get leapfrogged for Mac Jones. If they come out right now and say it's Mac Jones, it's always been Mac Jones, they're not going to get leapfrogged for Mac Jones. No one's trading up with the Jets or the Jaguars to get him.
Well,
So
maybe,
there is no strategic.
Well, no.
end here.
What if Atlanta really is hot on Trey Lance? What if they are hot on Trey Lance and they really want him? And now Atlanta's not sure. So what if that happens? I mean, we saw the 49ers not long ago switch a number 2 pick and become a number 3 pick, right? So I'm just throwing that out there. Listen, I did the same thing when Shanahan was like, I don't want the league to know. I don't want to tell anybody. I kind of was like, why? I mean, I was kind of thinking about that. But I do think you have to hold out hope for that type of possibility, maybe there is somebody really hot on these guys. And, okay, maybe we drop down a spot or two and still know that I'm going to get the quarterback I want to get. I'm guessing that's why they're keeping it secret.
Then why aren't the Jets embracing the possibility that Mac Jones could be their guy to try to get the 49ers to flip-flop, or the Jaguars throwing out the idea that maybe Zach Wilson's their guy to try to get the Jets to do a flip-flop? Why aren't the other teams doing it?
Well, I think that, 1 and 2 are everybody's 1 and 2. That would be my thought for the most part, and then just everybody thinks those two guys are going there. Like, I haven't heard too many people venture off the wait, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson are 1 and 2 in this draft. So that's kind of just set in stone there, I think, a little bit. I guess it's a little different of a conversation. But, Mike, I don't know. I'm not saying I know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't know who took over the PR function there since Bob Lang left to go back to Philadelphia. But this is going to be a PR challenge because on the back end, after they make this pick, they need to start sending out the message, this was always the guy, this was always the guy. The rest of it was strategic. The rest of it was window dressing. And the balance on the back end is going to be not saying so much that you give a career's worth of bulletin board material to the guys you didn't pick.
Yeah,
you can't crap on them.
Right.
You can't say, we didn't really like Trey Lance and Justin Fields. We don't think they're going to be good quarterbacks. We understand there's going to be busts, and we think they're more likely to be the busts than our guys. But you got so they've put themselves in a very difficult spot before the draft and potentially after the draft, because if they don't get the message out to the faithful, as they call them, that Mac Jones was always the guy, and maybe even if they do, they are stepping into this potential problem where if Jones doesn't work out, they're going to hear it from their fans and their media for years to come. You should have taken Lance. You should have taken Fields. And even though it's narrowed down to Lance and Jones, if Fields ends up being the superstar of the bunch, they're going to hear you should have taken Fields.
No doubt. They're definitely going to get, I told you so, you should have done this, what were you thinking? All of those type of things, there's no doubt. The other thing, too, that I took away, though, is just as far as I'm looking for clues, there's a lot of, Drew Brees references yesterday in that press conference, too, towards the end, which, again, made me think, it is a Mac Jones at quarterback. But we'll see. I mean, you're right. This is huge stuff. They have hijacked the draft. All we've talked about is the 49ers ever since they made this trade. I mean, really, have we ever talked less about the number 1 and number 2 pick in the draft ever? I can't remember. It's a huge moment for their organization. I mean, the pressure, the Jimmy G situation, the Shanahan's name is going to be attached to this forever. So yeah, we'll see where this goes. And whoever they pick, yeah, they're going to have to make sure they go all in to make it work so they don't get their butts fired.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.